Welcome to our Backyard Brothers podcast. We are getting dangerously close to March Madness. We'll be talking about that in 2 weeks. A lot of basketball kicking off, or tipping off, I should say, at that point. A lot of basketball tipping off in 2 weeks, and pretty much staying that way through June at that point. But we do have football for the next 2 weeks, and we'll still do some NFL in review between now and then to get those done. That's what we're doing today. But before we jump into all of that, Cody has a memory for us. We're over to Cody.
Yeah, so obviously it's no secret I'm a Seahawks fan. We talked about that at length. As far as offseason moves going on, Tyler Lockett, decade-long receiver, I think, for the Seahawks, setting franchise records with them, was just released. And so, as part of that, I was kind of reliving through some of his memories that he made while he was with their organization, and I wanted to review one that probably caught my attention the most, and what I would consider probably one of the greater catches in recent memory. And the time when it happened escapes me. It was 3 or 4 years ago, I think. But it was Seattle was playing against the Rams. It was at home. Still, Russell Wilson was still there as quarterback, and it was like they were down within the red zone. I think it was like on the 15 or 18-yard line or something like that. I don't remember the downage, but they hiked the ball, and Russell Wilson, like typical, was just kind of running around in the pocket trying to create something to happen. And Tyler Lockett was just helping him out. And so basically what happened is Tyler Lockett shot to the left, and he threw Russell Wilson threw the ball into one of the tightest pockets I've seen. And Tyler Lockett caught it with 2 feet in, about probably less than 3 inches from the wide, maybe 2 inches or so. And secured the catch. Both feet were down. It was incredible. I remember the next gen stat said it was like a 1.6% chance that he was going to catch that ball or something like that. It was something absolutely ridiculous. So that's just kind of who he was. One cool stat about him is it wasn't until this season that he had actually never dropped a ball in the end zone. His entire career. This year he dropped 2 or 3. But he had never dropped a ball in the end zone. And so that was pretty amazing. Probably the most reliable receiver, consistent reliable receiver that the Seahawks had for a while. So,
and we're talking just like a statistical drop. We're not talking if a defender was there to knock it away, right?
Statistical drop. Yeah, if it was, exactly. So, it'd been knocked away plenty of times, but statistical drop. He hadn't dropped one until this year. So, anyways, I want to hear from you guys what you thought about that. If there is another catch that made you think of, and share that as well. But I just wanted to go that direction with it.
Drop a ball and get fired, huh?
Yeah, rough watch in the NFL.
Yeah. It is great. It kind of reminds me of Super Bowl Steelers. I was
going to talk about that too.
That's the same one you're going to. Yeah. I don't want to one up here, but the greatest catch in Super Bowl. Super Bowl history, perhaps NFL history, is there, probably 10 seconds left on the clock, and Roethlisberger is able to just bullet this in to like biggest stretched out arms very possible, hit the very tips of the fingers in the very back corner of the end zone. Santonio Holmes. It was Santonio Holmes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was able to just keep it in, and Steelers win the Super Bowl because of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it reminded me of too.
Yeah.
Is that catch. I think Roethlisberger's throw was better than Wilson's that we saw in this one. Roethlisberger's throw was insane. The ability for him to have so much speed on that ball and go through about 4 guys' hands, just right over the outstretched hands and into the end zone. Wilson's was more of a prayer, just hey, I'll get this close. But Roethlisberger was so good on that throw. Both catches were great. I mean, you got to give it up to both of these receivers. The awareness they have of where they are in the field is top notch. to be able to know that you're that close to the end zone and to where your feet are, because it'd be so easy to just accidentally, and we see it happen. I mean, we saw the first game of this season, the Ravens and Chiefs, right? With that tight end, Isaiah Likely was out by a toe. And so it's so easy to not know exactly where you are in the field and miss it by an inch. But the fact that those two guys knew exactly where they are was really, really impressive for them.
Yeah, I think I don't have a ton to add, but the one thing I would add that was impressive to me was the movement that Ty Lockett showed while Russell Wilson was scrambling to help free him up to give him an opportunity to throw that ball. I did find that very impressive and just a heads up move by Ty Lockett. And that's one thing I don't think we pointed out, because if you, I watched the highlight that you sent over, and one of the things that I noticed when they zoomed in on him was he didn't just kind of stand around and wait to get open. He created an opportunity for himself, even if it was a 1% chance, and he went for it and he caught it. And that's execution at its finest. So I'd point that out, and it was an immaculate catch, definitely, to get his feet in while the quarterback's under pressure. Not necessarily the best ball, but still a good pass. You know what I mean? Because it's difficult to throw perfect while you have guys chasing you like he did. So an all-around impressive play, and a good pick for the memory, Cody.
Yeah. Okay. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking a lot about basketball in a couple of weeks here. I'm not sure we have a ton to talk about right now, but open it up for a basketball minute here. Probably college is more relevant at this point, but NBA is coming down the stretch too. There's a month left for the regular season in the NBA too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, either one of them is.
I have some commentary on both leagues. Mm-hmm. I can last if anybody else says anything.
The only thing that I was going to say is, as an alumnus of BYU, I kind of keep track of what they're doing every now and then, and BYU is one of the hottest teams in the country right now, and they're locked in at in a tournament spot at this point. They went into Ames, Iowa State, the top 10 team in the country, and went in there and won their 7th straight game, beat Iowa State in Ames in double overtime. So it was a fun game to watch, and BYU is a great offensive team. Dave Rose used to be the head coach there during the Jimmer Fredette era, and we always thought, man, when the Dave Rose era is gone, it's going to be rough. Turns out that Mark Pope is an even better basketball coach. He is just a great player. He was a great player at Kentucky and then in the NBA for a couple of years, and now he's an excellent basketball coach there. And you thought going to the Big 12 might hurt them coming from the West Coast Conference, and no, they're competitive with every team they play in the Big 12 too. Oh.
Never thought I'd see the day where BYU had a Pope.
Right.
Not since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, well, but yeah, they're on fire. BYU's on fire. They have some great players. Sanders is great, and I forget how to pronounce their big man's name. It's like Treyu or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching the highlights. I haven't watched a live game, but watched several highlights. Yeah, they've been great. I was also going to comment on BYU. They're maybe the hottest team in the league, and will probably end up somewhere with a 3 to a 6 seed in the tournament, which is a very good place to be. In the NBA, a couple comments I have is the Detroit Pistons are number 6 in the East. I would have added 10 to that. So that's incredible. A little more fallout from the Lakers and Dallas trade. I mean, Dallas has completely fallen apart and everything, right? Mm-hmm. They traded Luka away. They also traded Quentin Grimes away, and now Grimes is absolutely exploding in Philly, and he's doing great there. And then Anthony Davis gets injured the day after the trade. Now Kyrie Irving has been injured.
Torn ACL. Yeah.
Torn ACL. he's out for the season and potentially into next season a little bit. So all of that's happening. Fans have been chanting, fire the GM and F Nico and all this stuff. Fans are not happy with the organization at all in any way whatsoever. So Mark Cuban is in boiling water. He needs to. He probably should make a change at GM.
You could say he's in a Shark Tank.
Scott's on a roll. You're punny today, bro.
Yeah, we'll talk more NBA in weeks to come, but that's the only comment I had there.
I think the Lakers have found some success out of that trade for sure. You almost have to think that Dallas just ended up with the short end of the stick, which I thought, this is a crazy trade because I didn't really see that working out for them. And it certainly seems to have shot the Mavericks in the foot and boosted the Lakers because Doncic has been playing lights out as far as I can remember, right? He's been they're on a 7-game win streak right now, or since they acquired him.
Yeah, they're one of the hotter teams in the West. They're doing great. When on their return back to Dallas, Lakers played Dallas a week and a half ago or something, and Luka had a triple-double in that game back in Dallas.
Nice. Can you expand a little bit on because I didn't have a ton of my own thoughts about the NBA, but I am super curious to talk about this Pistons turnaround. What do you think led to that? Is it a players thing, a coaching thing? Obviously a mixture of both, or what couple things can you just give me bullet points on that have led to their success, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up some team stats here to make sure I got some data behind me.
Awesome.
So they're 12th in points per game and 9th in rebounding, and 14th in assists per game, and 15th in defense. Right. So they have some pretty decent average, or a little better than average in stats. Doing well, especially I enjoy that rebounding. But then let me see here. Cade Cunningham is their star player for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I would point out that they have 6 players averaging 10 or more points per game.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Cade Cunningham's at 25.5, which is, almost 10 more than anyone else. But then you got Jaden Ivey and Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris and Jalen Duren and Tim Hardaway Jr. all averaging 10 to 18 in that range. And so they're getting a lot of help from a lot of people.
It seems like that's a team effort of just tired of being a laughing stock of the NBA, right? I mean, it was bad last year, and so I think that's fueling a lot of this success partially. But that's interesting to hear that they're up in the top 10 in a few of those categories.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really it's been very recently. I mean, first half of this season they're under 500, but since January they've gone 21-10. So January, February, and so far March they're 21-10. That's at a 2/3 win rate, and so it's really at the second half of the season that they're really putting the pedal down.
Thanks.
All right. Any other basketball topics? Okay. We are going to finish up college football review today. There's going to be 3 teams that we're going to show like we've done in the past, because they're the 2 Pac-2 teams left and Notre Dame. And then from there, we'll just do quickly through the group of 5 divisions. And so it shouldn't take very long. And those are the famous last words, right? But let's see here. So starting with the Pac-2, Oregon State, everyone left once everyone left the Pac-12, everyone left Oregon State too. And so, including their head coach. And so going 5-7 doesn't qualify for a bowl game. So head coach Trent Bray, kind of a tough season there. But they did technically win the Pac-2 championship because they beat Washington State that second to the last game of the year. So that's one thing for them, right? I mean, they win that game.
Was their quarterback injured, or are those his numbers?
I think he was probably not the starting quarterback until late in the season.
Yeah, it didn't add up to me. That's why I was curious if anybody knew.
Trent Walker looks like a cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
No, guys, I'm really a wide receiver, I promise. He's just a cardboard cutout on a Roomba.
Washington State, they did go 8-5. They did go to a bowl game, which they lost to Syracuse. John Mateer was one of the better quarterbacks in the country. He was fun to watch. You've never heard of him probably, but 29 touchdowns passing and 15 more on the ground. That's 44 touchdowns against 7 interceptions. I don't know how many fumbles he had, but I think he has transferred though, right, Cody?
Yeah, he's transferred to Oklahoma.
Okay, yeah. So he won't be there, but he was fun to watch for Washington State. Again, they go 8-4, 8-5 after losing the bowl game, but losing the game to Oregon State probably hurt him, I'm sure. Okay.
So coach's last name is kind of funny. It's like, make sure you wear a cut before you, or else you'll get your dick hurt.
Chill, Dustin. Your mom watches this. That was funny. That was funny though.
Okay. Notre Dame, obviously they were the runners up. They won the first round against Indiana by 10. Then they won that Sugar Bowl against Georgia in the second round by 13. Then they won a very close semifinal game against Penn State by 3 points, and then lost to Ohio State after letting a first half get away from them. They couldn't come back all the way. But third in the country in points and third in the country in points allowed. So they were good everywhere. Obviously, you have to be in order to be the runner-up to the national championship. You look at their stuff. They lost that second game of the season to Northern Illinois, and I remember us all kind of freaking out about that, saying, yeah, Notre Dame just lost to Northern Illinois. They did not lose again until the national championship game. So we can talk about that. Riley Leonard had a pretty good season, 16 touchdowns. You kind of think he should have thrown more than that, but 16 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions. Cody, he's not a Notre Dame next year, but I can't remember if he's in the draft or if he transferred again.
I think he's in the draft. I think.
Okay.
I'll have to double check that, but I don't know how many, but he would have had a lot of rushing touchdowns. He was a running quarterback, so he probably has somewhere around his passing touchdowns and rushing as well.
Okay. Good to know. Jeremiah Love here ran for 949 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 7 yards a carry. He's going to be I think he's in the draft process as well, that running back position. And so he should be a top running back taken. 7 yards a carry is insane. That's as much about a running back as it is the offensive line. But
yeah, he's going to the draft. Leonard is. Okay.
All right. Whoops. Now we're just going to talk through some divisions. This is the American Athletic Conference. And there's a lot of information on this slide. Obviously, we're not going to get to everything this says, but I have defensive leaders and offensive leaders. I have some key stats. I have the record. I have the head coach. And here, hidden in the offensive leaders is where their bowl game was, because it's the only place I can put it. But we don't have to talk about every team here. Army obviously goes 11-1. They won the Independence Bowl. They were the best team out of this division. Memphis is also one to call out at 10-2. They were also very good. They won the Frisco Bowl against West Virginia, and then Navy at 8-3. Trent Dilfer, the former Super Bowl winning head coach, is the head coach over at, or Super Bowl winning quarterback is the head coach over at UAB. And those are the things that I would call out. Anything on this slide anyone wants to talk about? These 7 teams in the
I think you pretty much covered it. I was just going to make sure that was the same Trent Dilfer. I thought it was, but just wanted to double check. So I don't think I will say Memphis's quarterback had fairly outstanding numbers. Seth Hennigan, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So that's all I really see that jumps out at me, though, that I wanted to point out.
Okay. The second half of the American. Not as good numbers here. Tulane is the big one that kind of jumps out at 9-4. They lost the Gasparilla Bowl to Florida. They kind of got beat down pretty hard by Florida. But they were the other good team out of that conference. Everyone else was 6 wins or less. So not a whole lot to talk about for the second half of this.
Owen McCown, 24-9, and just below him, Darian Mensa, 22-6. Those are noteworthy. North Texas, Chandler Morris, 31-12.
Yeah.
Those are shout-out worthy numbers, I would say, just for personal performance for the quarterbacks. Kirk Francis played like dog poop, though. 9 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
Thanks for calling some of these stats guys out. I appreciate that. It's good to tell these people, to call out these people that played well. Owen McCown is Josh McCown's son, by the way. If anyone knows who that is, he played in the NFL for what was it, 30 years?
He played for the Bears for a while, right? That was his.
I think he played for at least half the teams.
I was just saying, I think he played for everyone.
Yeah. He was more of a backup, right? I mean, he started a few places, but more of a backup.
Yeah.
I want to say I remember him at Cleveland for the most part for some reason. So
yeah, he was in San Francisco for a year. He was, just everywhere.
Journeyman.
As you can see here, a few of us had Tulane, and when I say a few, I mean Dustin and Yancey had Tulane in the championship game, but no one had Army. But Army ended up winning the whole thing.
I think that's pretty close to across the board. No one had Army going 11-1.
Yeah. Okay, over to the Conference USA. One to call out here is Kennesaw State, as bad as they were. 133rd in yards per game, 250 yards per game on offense. Oregon did that in about half a half. So first quarter, they had 250 yards. Liberty went 8-3. Louisiana Tech is one I'd call out. They were the only losing team to make a bowl game. I don't know how they decide that, but they did make a bowl game at 5-7 and lost it to Army, who we just talked about. Jacksonville State also did really well, 9-4, went to a bowl game, which they lost as well. But
wow,
Jenkins. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was just looking at Jacksonville State running back Trey Stewart, 1,600 yards and 23 touchdowns. That is amazing.
Ooh, good point out. That's crazy for a running back in college. Yeah. And I haven't even heard his name really. That's nuts.
Oh.
I was going to shout out Keon Jenkins for the 22-8 performance. It's decent. Said similar numbers already, so.
Yeah, and I'll also call out the Liberty running back, Quentin Cooley, who had almost 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns as well. Jacksonville State and Liberty were the number 2 and number 3 rushing teams in the country as far as rushing yards per game. So both of those teams were good running the ball. Okay, second half of the Conference USA, Sam Houston sticks out. They won in the New Orleans Bowl against Georgia Southern. They went 9-3. Western Kentucky went 8-5. That's about it, though.
What's his name? Caden Vetikamp. I can't really read that. Vetikamp. Okay, thank you. 23-10, pretty decent. A little more interceptions that I would like to see with 23 touchdowns, but the only noteworthy performance I think that I would want to point out myself, unless anybody else has somebody.
Parker Awad played like a wad of trash.
Now you're just reaching.
Now we're doing dad jokes here.
A wad of trash. Even drew it out.
Yeah. You hurt your TJ pride on that one, Dustin.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at the Conference USA, I think looks like everyone but Dustin had Jacksonville State in the championship, but only Dustin had Western Kentucky in the championship, and so it's a wash here. None of us had those two together, unfortunately, and Jacksonville State won the whole thing.
I think it's interesting how we all had Liberty, but Liberty wasn't in there at all.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, on to the Mid-American Conference, the MAC. Akron was awful at 2-10. Bowling Green, I'd point out
Kent State.
Not as bad as Kent State. You're right. 0-12. Oof. 134th in both points per game and points per game allowed. They lost.
What did you say?
So I was going to say, I think it's literally dead last.
Yeah, that is dead last in both categories. They lost on average every game 44-14.
Oh, dude.
That is a bad football team.
I'm not sure about this, but
I'd want to call out.
Name.
Yeah. They are now Kent State.
Kansas State.
Bowling Green tight end Harold Fannin, call him out again. 1,300 yards receiving for a tight end. That's hard to do in the NFL, let alone college. So, 9 touchdowns, and he showed out for the bowl game, the 68 Ventures Bowl, where he had pretty much all of the receiving yards. So he'll be a top draft pick, probably the first tight end taken off the board out of Bowling Green. Nothing else for me here.
Let's hope the starter for Central Michigan was injured. Otherwise, we got to call out Joey Labasse for throwing a dead even season, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing I have to say is, as good as Harold Fannin is, I don't see him going before Tyler Warren from Penn State.
Yeah,
I think Tyler Warren will probably go first.
Fair. Yeah.
I got to agree.
Whoops. Ohio went 10-3, and won the Cure Bowl against Jacksonville State, who we've talked about recently. Northern Illinois had that big game where they beat Notre Dame, but they just finished 7-5, so didn't do a whole lot beyond that. They did win the Idaho Potato Bowl against Fresno State. Not a whole lot else to call out here. Toledo had a tough season relative to expectations at 7-5. UConn got back to winning football at 8-4.
Tucker Gleason played moderately well for them. Actually, pretty good, 22-7. Even though they couldn't get as many wins as they needed, he played well for Toledo.
And if anyone can say this name, you can.
Try. Tyson.
Yes, we're gonna go with Cody's.
Okay. Looks like Yancey and I both had Ohio, and I had Ohio winning it, and so I was the closest there. No, Dustin and Cody did have Miami of Ohio in there. So, yep, all of us were okay there. Over to the Mountain West. Obviously, got to talk about Boise State. They were the lone Group of 5 representative in the playoff. Ashton Genty, 2,500 yards rushing on the season and 29 touchdowns. Obviously was there at the end and the Heisman finalist, as he should have been for sure. And beyond that, obviously Boise State was the big one out of any Group of 5 conference to get where they were. They were 4th in points per game, went 12-1. I can't remember who they lost to in the regular season. Maybe Oregon, was it?
Oregon.
Yeah.
By 3 points.
Yeah. And then ended up losing to Penn State in that first round pretty convincingly.
So a couple of things I wanted to point out as well is, other than them having a really good rushing attack, which everyone's focused on, but look at Maddox Madsen, the quarterback, 22 touchdowns against only 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
He actually had a really good season as well. They had a lot of good pass catchers, a good passing season. So that's probably one reason why, though, Ashton Genty was able to, do so well. He did get, 50 carries a game or something like that, but they're still able to pass around. And then also on the defensive side, Jaden Virgin had 10 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just shows as well that they were a defensive team. So a lot of people think Ashton Genty was the entire reason, and I think he was a big, big reason. but he obviously was not the only reason. They had a good quarterback. They had a very good defense. They had a good coach. So
Good call out.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that summary. That was a good one. I don't see anybody else with a noteworthy performance other than Quentin Hayes, only 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I'm going to assume that comes from not starting.
No, that comes from their style of play. They're an option offense.
No, get out of here. They just
yeah.
couldn't score. Yeah. All right.
I mean, they run the option. You can see. Oh, actually, I didn't put it up there, but they throw the ball less than anyone else in college football. So
I guess that makes sense, but still.
Yeah.
They should change their name, maybe.
They're the ground force.
Ground force. There you go.
Anyway, second half of the Mountain West, UNLV went 10-3 this year. I think Barry Odom is taking a different job. I can't remember where at this point, but he's no longer at UNLV. He took his job somewhere else. Maybe Cody knows. But
what, Barry Odom?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay. I thought he was, but I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. Nothing else for me to point out, really. UNLV was obviously, along with Boise State, the class of that conference.
Yeah, nobody with a noteworthy performance.
Yeah.
Sorry. He actually is who replaced the Purdue head coach. He went to Purdue.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. All right. Cody and Dustin had Boise State in there. Yancey and I, we missed the mark there, not putting Boise State in there. No one had UNLV. We all kind of struggled. Yancey and Dustin both had Wyoming, and if I go back, they went 3-9. So
yeah, that was a bad pick.
Yancey and
Shouldn't
I
have backed that horse.
Yeah. But I mean, for the most part, everyone except me thought that the Mountain West champion was going to the playoff, and that turned out to be the case. So, okay, last division, the Sun Belt. The big one to call out is Louisiana down at the bottom at 10-3. They lost the New Mexico Bowl to TCU. James Madison was also really good at 8-4. Georgia Southern was 8-4. Those three teams to call out there.
Alonzo Barnett, 26-4, noteworthy. 23-10 for Joey Aguilar, or 23-14, sorry, for Joey Aguilar for Appalachian State. Mm-hmm. Also somewhat noteworthy, but that's the only two call outs I would have.
Yeah. So for the same team, James Madison, Eric O'Neill, 12 sacks. Did you call it out? Did I just miss that?
No.
Okay. Sacks, that's really impressive. 5 interceptions as well for Terrence Spence. So very good defense.
Yeah. Okay, and the second half of the Sun Belt here, Marshall went 10-3. They declined the bowl game invitation, so they were the only team that declined one. That was because all of their players left to go join other teams, and they didn't feel that they would be competitive anymore. Southern Miss 1-11, other than Kent State, probably the worst team in college football, other than them. So those are the two I would call out there. Gio Lopez. I mean, I'll call out someone here. 18 touchdowns, 5 picks on the season for South Alabama.
Jordan McLeod, 29-12. And then on the flip side, Aiden
Armenta.
9-10. Ouch.
Yeah.
Not helping your team with that performance.
I was going to say really quick, ULM had a pretty good rushing attack. Looks like 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns for Ahmad Hardy. That's really impressive.
Southern Miss only won 1 game. Ouch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we all missed the mark here. None of us had Louisiana or Marshall. And so we all missed it there. We all thought James Madison or Appalachian State, and App State wasn't anywhere close. James Madison was at least close. Okay. That is our college football review. The next time we'll talk college football is, August probably. So I'm going to stop share this one. And open up this one. Do you all see the Dallas Cowboys?
Mhm.
Okay, and Dustin's up first.
All right. 7-10. This was a disappointing season, which is, I don't know if you can call something normal disappointing, but 7-10. Points per game allowed, 31st. This was a terrible defense. Yeah, and then didn't run the ball. That's because you have Zeke on your team. But they were able to force a lot of turnovers. But that's really the only good thing they did on defense, because they had other teams run all over them as well. So a very disappointing season from the Cowboys. Cooper Rush replaced Dak Prescott about halfway through the season. Overall not a bad season. 60% is on the low side of okay. 12 touchdowns, 5 picks. CeeDee Lamb was the star. He did have almost 1,200 yards and over 100 catches. Rico Dowdle was, kind of the guy that came in to replace Tony Pollard and did a pretty decent job, at least as yards go, but just couldn't get into the end zone. On the offensive line, you could see the left tackle was kind of a rotating door there. 14 penalties there. That's very bad.
Yep, 14%, and on 64% of snaps.
Yeah.
I want to figure out how often was he committing penalties.
Yeah, that's more than one a game.
That's almost more than he ain't.
Yeah. But this struggled here outside of Tyler Smith and Zach Martin. This was a struggle. Micah Parsons has been fantastic in years past. He still had 12 tackles for loss and 12 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. So great numbers, getting the recognition. But overall, this front line struggled to stop the run. You can see the number of sacks all came from Micah for the most part. He has more than everybody else combined.
Mm-hmm.
For the linebacking crew, Eric Hendricks, 138 tackles. That's a fantastic number, including 3 sacks, 2 picks. So these are some great numbers. I would expect a color to be there on Eric Hendricks. Too bad it's not. Overshown had one of the greatest highlights of the season with that tipped pass that he caught and then back for a pick 6. That was very fun. That one interception turned to a touchdown.
Yeah. And he got hurt near the end of the season. I think he missed the rest of the season, but he's someone that the Cowboys are excited about. Yeah.
Yes, I think he'll be a good part of the future. Here, again, there's really no one to write home about except for maybe Donovan Wilson from a number standpoint. Trayvon Diggs had a fantastic season 2 or 3 seasons ago and really hasn't been able to live up to that same hype that he created for himself. Again, there's a few good numbers in here, but overall, this is a team that could not stop the other team from scoring. For the backups, Kevontae Turpin is a good one to call out. Ezekiel Elliott had 226 yards. I think Saquon Barkley had more than that in a single game.
Yeah.
No other ones to call out. DeMarcus Lawrence is a name that's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Here again, nobody else to really call out from either a numbers or a reputation standpoint. Brandon Aubrey, 40 of 47 field goals. I'd like that to be a little higher. And Brian Anger had 62 punts, 24 within the 20. So a third of them he's getting inside the 20. Mike McCarthy got fired end of the season. Just could not have any level of consistency over his tenure there. Occasionally had good seasons, and then would follow up with a very disappointing season. And Brian Schottenheimer will take over as the head coach, because Jerry Jones really likes 21st in points, 17th in yards, 11th in pass yards, 7th in rush yards. These are numbers to strive for.
He's also going to help Agent Scully figure out who abducted his sister.
Okay. Stop share. Dustin?
Have the Cowboys hired a defensive coordinator yet?
Not that I know of. I haven't heard that yet. I mean, that was going to be my point, but I'll wait till you make your points. You're first.
A very disappointing season for the Cowboys. They played in an extremely tough conference, but they weren't barely losing games. They were getting beat bad in all the games that they lost. In the games they won, they weren't running them out of the stadium either. And so this was a team struggle. And I think fans of the Cowboys looking into next season don't have all that much hope to look for. They don't feel like the changes that are needed were necessarily made. And so I'm interested to see what happens with next season and what comes out of that. But ultimately, this team just couldn't put anything together. I feel that CeeDee Lamb is kind of the bright star on the team. Dak Prescott is great. He's a great quarterback, but his inconsistency is showing through, and then he's prone to injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about Dan Quinn soon, but with the Commanders. But you just look at the drop off after Dan Quinn left, because that defense was excellent under Dan Quinn the last few seasons in Dallas. He leaves to take the Washington head coach. Mike Zimmer comes in, and suddenly the Dallas defense is one of the worst in the NFL once Dan Quinn leaves. And so there's a lot to talk about, both from what Washington got getting Dan Quinn and what Dallas was left with once he left. And so yeah, I don't know how Brian Schottenheimer is going to do. It's going to be a tough couple of years, I think, in Dallas, and maybe a tough however long until Jerry Jones dies kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure whose turn it is next, but I'll go. I mean, if you look at it like as a big, long spectrum, it's kind of just depressing what's happened to the Cowboys. They used to be, back in the 80s, they were winning Super Bowl. They were contenders every single year, to the point where, honestly, they're just the laughing stock right now. They're just a laughing stock for the NFL. And I think we've all kind of agreed that we don't really know what's going on with Shoddy being hired as the head coach. Oh, by the way, Matt Eberflus was hired as defensive coordinator for Dallas. So there you go. They got that too. And then Dak Prescott had a contract rework, so had something moved around. For me, it's like, I mean, I get that, but Dak Prescott, all he has shown me is inconsistency. He can be really good at times. He'll be really bad at other times. The only thing he's consistent as is sucking in the playoffs, and being injured, really. And so
he's pretty good at that hip thrust thing that he does.
Yeah, that's true. He's good at that. And so I mean, I'm just not sure how I feel about the whole rework either. I think you just need to get rid of him, honestly. Like I think he needs a new start somewhere else. I think he can be great somewhere else, but I think honestly, Dallas just needs to rework everything, and starting with Jerry Jones.
Hey, if Social Security is any indicator, and we have 300-year-olds, Jerry Jones could be around for quite some time. Let's hope for the Cowboys' sake that that's not the case, and that someone's lying. I think that I think it starts with leadership, which the Cowboys don't have, and they had really good talent that got squandered because of either coaching decisions, injuries that get guys set back, and then other guys who can't really step up and perform to that level because they don't have the cap market for it, to have like a deep enough team to deal with the injuries that they sustained. And I just don't see that America's team thing coming back to the Cowboys, period, let alone anytime soon. And I think it comes from Jerry Jones kind of crippling that organization with bad choices. He just made bad choice after bad choice after bad choice and then doubled down on them. So I think that's just going to keep happening. And until that bad seed gets removed, I don't see any future for Dallas that I'm rooting for.
Yep. Okay. Moving on to the New York Giants, and this is the team that I get to trash here for a second. 3-14. That's one of the worst records in the NFL. I believe they have the 3 pick in the draft, either 2 or 3 in the draft. I can't remember which. 31st in points, 16.1 points per game. That's not going to win any games. In fact, it's going to win you 3. But red zone percentage, the worst in the league, 43% scoring at all when they get down in the red zone. That's awful. Like 43%, you should be at least 75%, right? Because you can hit a field goal, you don't turn it over. But no, 43%. So Drew Lock took over about halfway through the season, probably, when they lost all faith in Daniel Jones and eventually released him, and he signed with Minnesota. Drew Lock didn't inspire any confidence either, though. 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the season, and ran for 2 more touchdowns. Less than 60% completion. He's not the answer either. Giants are probably going to be taking a quarterback with their first pick, whether it's number 2 or number 3. So whether they like Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, one of those 2 is probably going to New York. So Malik Neighbors, though, looking at the future, he's a great piece to have there. If you get a quarterback who can really throw him in the ball, he was a rookie and he caught 109 catches, 1,200 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He was fantastic. And so you just need a quarterback to get him the ball, and you need to get anyone else to catch balls. And so, yeah, Tyrone Tracy also was a rookie, and he played well enough to take that number 1 running back role about halfway through the season. So offensive line was an unmitigated disaster. Nowhere was there anything good going on. No, nowhere. I think they're stuck with John Michael Schmitz at center. Evan Neal just played himself out of a job. He's had 3 years to try and figure it out. He hasn't done it. Jermaine Illuminor has probably been the best one over there, but he's just stopgap solution. I don't know what they're doing. Dexter Lawrence is the Giants' best player, if it's not Malik Neighbors. But he was hurt for a little bit of the year as well, though, and so his numbers are not quite as inflated as they maybe would have been. 9 sacks is still pretty good, but
was it glaucoma? Sorry,
but he's their best player if he's going to stay for the foreseeable future. Brian Burns had 8.5 sacks coming over. He was the big free agent acquisition. He played well enough. 8.5 sacks. You'd want to see him get double digits, but 8.5 is okay. Micah McFadden, 107 tackles. Call him out for getting over 100. Bobby Okereke, I think that's how you say his name. 93 tackles as well. And the secondary was pretty bad too. Tyler Nubin was the first safety taken in the draft, ended up with 98 tackles. So, he did pretty well in his position. Andrew Phillips was also a rookie. You just don't get many numbers here. You don't. How many interceptions do you have here total? I see 2 in the secondary, 2 total. And so you're not getting turnovers from this group either. Tommy DeVito was, technically he played better than than Drew Lock. He threw 70%. He didn't throw an interception. He also didn't throw a touchdown. But you're getting a new quarterback. That's all I can say. Nothing to talk about over here. Nothing. And then Jamie Gillen, he is nicknamed the Scottish Hammer, and that's a pretty cool name, if you ask me. But 43.7 average, not really that great. 40.5 net, also not that good. You're really good when you see an average of 50 and a net of about 47 or 48. He's not quite there.
Was Graham Gano the kicker the entire season?
Most of it.
Extra points.
Yeah, most of it, but he was hurt for part of the year. 15 extra points isn't everything that the Giants kicked. They did have another kicker that came in for part of the season.
But only 11 field goals attempted from him. I mean, you're usually looking at that 40 to 50 range. And I mean, so they never gotten scoring.
Well, that's why they were 43% in the red zone.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Despite this horrible season, they're bringing everyone back on the coaching staff. Brian Dable, he just completed his third season. Mike Kafka, the offense coordinator, Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator. There's nothing good to talk about on offense. I'm not sure why Mike Kafka's coming back. If I were Brian Dable, I'd take over play calling. He's a good play caller. 31st points, 30th yards, 28th, 23rd. I'm not doing anything on offense there. Defense is a little bit better. The one saving grace being 8th in passing yards allowed on defense. But no matter what, this I know for a fact, because I have some Giants fans friends, because I lived in New York for a summer. I still keep in touch with them. They're not happy about the coaching staff being retained. So I'm going to stop share. And discussion about the Giants. It's just a toxic waste dump of a culture over there. You know it when you get rid of Saquon Barkley, you get rid of what's his name, McKinney, Xavier McKinney, and both of them have career years the very next year in other places. And so it's just, I don't know how long it's going to take or what it's going to take to bring the Giants back to relevance, but it's probably a multi-year and multi-coach effort.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of videos, like clips from Hard Knocks on the Giants circulating, all about this GM. I forget his name.
Joe Shane.
Yeah, and just you see him making these decisions that are now, infamous, deciding to let go of Barkley, and, reasoning where, talking with his advisors and said, yeah, Barkley's great, but we just invested $160 million in Daniel Jones. That's where we got to focus, and then release Daniel Jones halfway through the season. I mean, it doesn't make sense. There's no consistency, and there's nothing seems to be data driven or even intelligence driven there. So yeah, they need some changes across the board, and I think with Joe Shane and the GM role, that's going to be harder to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add or really disagree with. I mean, you can't win 3 games and have a ton to look forward to. Of course, they'll have a nice pick, and maybe building off of that young talent will help them. But I'm kind of in the same camp with Dustin here, that I don't see the leadership that's going to bring on the kind of things that they need to do to bring success to that organization. And that's all I'd really add to it.
I have nothing else to add other than that this is just a dumpster fire.
Yeah. Okay. Going from one of the worst to one of the best, or the best at this point, because they just won the Super Bowl. Yancey, take it away with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Let's go Birds. So 14-3, pretty good record. Able to pull it off against Green Bay, 22-10 in the wild card, beat the Rams 28-22 in the divisional. put it down on Washington 55-23, excuse me, and then beating the Chiefs in a wonderful margin of 40-22. Just really put it down on the Chiefs in a way that we haven't really seen any other team do previous for the last couple of years. Second best offense. Not great as far as passing yards go, 29th ranking. The defense definitely helped them when it came to the passing yardage allowed, though, getting themselves to the first ranked defense there. And then 20th, allowing, 30.7 points?
No, it's just the average start. I had to really reach to find where they were bad on defense, and so the kicking game probably wasn't that great because they let teams start around the 31-yard line. That's as bad.
Okay. So really nothing that bad to pick on there. We can move up. Jalen Hurts, fairly outstanding performance all in all. 68%. Nearly 3,000 yards, 18-5, 150 rushes for 630 yards and 14 touchdowns, really helping his team get into the end zone. Saquon Barkley probably had the highlight of the year with that reverse hurdle jump. I think we can all agree with that. That was probably the most incredible play I've seen for a long time, since like the Dan Marino helicopter hit or something like that. That definitely came to mind as one of the best plays I've seen. His numbers also backed it up. He performed well, giving his team 13 touchdowns, 2,000 yards, 33 receptions for 278 yards and 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown also had a mentionable performance. Can you remind me, Scott, what the colors were? I know that Saquon went to the Pro Bowl, right? And then
blue is unanimous All-Pro. I mean, that's as good as we get for Saquon. The gold is second team All-Pro.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't see anybody else that would really earn an honorable mention. Devontae Smith, I guess. Yeah, he was right there underneath A.J. Brown, but didn't really get the same, recognition for his numbers.
Look at that offensive line.
The line deserves a shout out. Basically everybody other than Becton getting a All-Pro vote, right? Or
the pink for Cam Jurgens is Pro Bowl. Everyone else got All-Pro votes.
All-Pro. Okay, thank you.
And look at the size of that offensive line. That is the biggest offensive line in the NFL. They're all north of 300 pounds. Most of them are 330, 40. There's 2 over 360.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if you want to call him a short center at 6'3", but not really. But I'm sure he looks like that in the huddle.
Yeah.
Defensively on the line, I would say the tackles for loss going to Jalen Carter and him getting that All-Pro vote. Or is that second? Okay, All-Pro, thank you. And then 5 sacks, I guess. Not a whole lot to write home about for the defensive line. It's going to come here in the linebacking core. Zach Bond, definitely probably one of the best defensive players in the league with those numbers jumping out at me like that. 151 tackles, definitely helping his team out, backed up by Nakobe Dean, I would say, 128. 9 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks. And we'll just call him Nolan Smith for his glasses. Cooper DeJean, as everybody, the white boy corner, I guess, as everybody likes to call him. Good for him. Played fairly well. Not incredible, but when your secondary has low tackles like this, but is getting interceptions and creating pass deflections, shout out for 13 for Darius Slay. CJ Gardner-Johnson played fairly well. And that's
just
I'll call out.
Sorry, just a side note, Darius Slay was released yesterday by the Eagles.
Okay.
Oh, really? Thanks.
And just imagine what Cooper DeJean's going to do when puberty kicks in there.
Yeah, you know what I mean. He's gonna hit that growth spurt. Feel free to shout anybody out if you know that they've had good performances or anything like that. But I don't really see anybody that
Dallas Goedert is, I mean, this is again by snap count, so he was hurt for a lot of the year, which is why he falls, but he's the starting tight end.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The name Moro Ojomo just sounds fun to say.
Moro Domo. It does sound kind of like a superhero. Let's see.
And Brandon
Same.
Graham just retired, won his second Super Bowl.
Oh, nice. Good for him.
Okay.
And then, wasn't he Spider-Man at one point? Their punter? My bad. He has good numbers. Jake Elliott only missing one, but not great numbers for the field goal. I expect my guy to get me 3 when I send him out there. Yet can't be mad with the coaching staff that gets you a Super Bowl. So I see everybody here staying, right?
Kellen Moore was just hired as the Saints head coach.
Okay, well he's moving up. I like forward progress, but do we know who's replacing him yet?
I haven't kept track of those yet, so I imagine we already know, but I don't remember.
I can tell you in a second. Hold on.
Okay. While we wait for that, I can stop share and we can go to discussion.
Yeah, overall, I think you can't ask for more success than what the Eagles had. Jalen Hurts played well. Saquon Barkley turned out to be an awesome pickup from the Giants, and they just kind of shoved it in the Giants' face. And they had a chippy kind of rivalry as far as I remember. So good for them for turning around and really coming back from the they lost pretty late in the playoffs last year, right? The season previous, they got close, but then fell short.
2 years ago, they went to the Super Bowl, lost to the Chiefs. So now they've got revenge. And last year they had that weird fall off at the end and lost like 7 of the last 8 games.
Oh, okay. So definitely, you like to see the kind of comeback that they had. And I'll just kind of wrap up with, I'm sure they hope that they have that kind of success next year. And let's just hope that they get a coordinator that fits for them.
Mm-hmm. Cody, did you find anybody?
Yeah, his name is Kevin Patullo. He's the
I don't know that.
He's the Eagles passing game coordinator. He's been promoted, so name I hadn't heard of before.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you win a Super Bowl, you've hit the pinnacle, and you're expected to compete for Super Bowls after that. And we've talked about them before, that they were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They missed it by just that much against the Chiefs, and now they've won it again. So there could be a dynasty in the making in Philadelphia right now too. And so that's a scary thing for fans of other teams.
Yeah, I think really the only thing I'm going to add is if we think back to when we saw the offensive line, pretty much every single one was light up with colors, right? That's the reason. That's the reason they won the Super Bowl. Aside from a few other key players, but without an offensive line, you can't do anything. We all know that. And having an offensive line that is cohesive like that, and is aggressive and strong, and has a bond that can get you places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was impressed that they had a 1,000-yard receiver and a 2,000-yard running back, right, in the same season. Shows that they're very versatile and agile on offense, and able to do both very well. And then with Jalen Hurts had like 32 total touchdowns. They just did everything.
Okay. All right, we got 20 minutes, Cody, to finish up the Commanders. So
do it. All right. Washington Commanders 12-5 and second in the NFC East. A surprise. A lot of people, if not practically everyone, probably didn't expect this. They won the wild card round. They beat Detroit in the second divisional round, which was a big shock. And they were able to go to the NFC Championship in Dan Quinn's inaugural season there for the Commanders. So very good, 5th in points per game, 18th in points per game allowed. So a lot better on offense than they were on defense, and 7th in yards per game. So they had a lot of production. Yeah, you can go ahead and move forward.
Oops. Sorry. Trying.
Dwayne Daniels, great. That was his second season. He was here last year, right? This is
his rookie year.
Okay, I'm already forgetting things. So great rookie year. This is Pro Bowl. So he went to the Pro Bowl, 69%. So pretty close to 70, kind of where you want to be. 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 6 touchdowns on the ground. Versatile, very good quarterback. Scary Terry was the highlight for this year. Over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. Brian Robinson, also a great running back, 8 touchdowns. So other than that, Zach Ertz is a pretty good tight end. When you can get almost 700 yards and 7 touchdowns, that's pretty good for a tight end. And then to add to this, though, next year they will also have Deebo Samuel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just got him from San Francisco.
Yeah. Offensive line. Let's see if there's anything to really call out here. Nothing really special. They're all smaller than the Eagles' offensive line, which is funny. But overall, they all have had some penalties, but played most of the snaps. So nothing special though. Defensive line, we got, I think, probably Jajon Newton there on the defensive tackle. He's probably the one to stick out the most. 6 TFLs, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble and recovery, and a pass deflection as well. So I'd like to see a little bit more numbers from everyone, but they were okay there. In the linebacking core, really good showings from Frankie Luvu. Love you. Oh my goodness. Love you. And then
love you too, bud.
And Bobby Wagner just signed another 1-year extension with the Commanders for next year as well. So 132 tackles, 10 TFLs, 2 sacks, just a lot of numbers there, and really from everyone. I mean, we got 14 TFLs from Fowler, 12 from Luvu, and Fowler's got 10.5 sacks. I'm kind of surprised he's not lit up with the color as well. So
yeah, you got 20.5 sacks combined with those 3 guys. So
yeah, that's pretty amazing. So great defensive line there, or linebacker. Secondary, I guess I want to point out both Mike Sainstrill and then Jeremy Chin. Jeremy Chin had 117 tackles, 7 TFLs. When a safety is getting in the backfield that many times, that's impressive. So they're probably doing a lot of defensive back blitz.
And Chin plays probably more like a linebacker than he does a safety anyway.
Is he maybe more like a kind of almost like a nickel back, kind of up there on the line?
Yeah, he's usually down near the line of scrimmage.
Okay. 2 sacks as well, an interception, forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. Sainstrill over there with 14 pass deflections. That's really impressive. So 2 interceptions. So they had a pretty good secondary. When the linebacking crew is not getting to them, then the secondary is causing some damage there.
Quick joke. Mike, can you go back real quick? Mike and Quan look like a before and after of a guy who got his forehead stretched and he's not happy about it. Mike's like, oh yeah, I'm cool with that. And then Quan's like, nah, bro, that's too far.
All right. So with the offensive bench, I think, obviously got to call out Austin Eckler. Really good kick returner as well. Secondary, and he got, second string, and he was still voted to the unanimous second team pro or something, right?
Second team All-Pro, yeah.
Yeah, second team All-Pro. Marcus Mariota, I think, is a good backup to have, so that's nice to have. Other than that, I don't know if there's anyone else to call out. Defensive bench. Nothing sticking out to me. If you guys have anything, then call it out, but nothing special to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. So Austin Seibert, okay, yeah, it's not bad at all. 27-30 and 22-24. Of course, you want to see as close to 100% as you can there. Tressway, 50 punts. Nothing really super special. And yay, Tyler Lockett played 17 games. Good for him. Dan Quinn, like I said, for his first season, obviously not the first season as a head coach, but first at Washington. 9th in turnovers, 22nd in TOs forced, and 20th in penalties. Cliff Kingsbury is a great offensive coordinator. You can see it there, 5th in points, 7th in yards, 3rd in rushing yards. Probably just work on that passing game, and you'll be good to go next year. Joe Witt, I actually haven't heard that name before, so I'm not sure about his history, but he could definitely improve defensively. Do you know was Dan Quinn calling plays or was it Witt?
I don't know. I just know that Joe Witt came with Dan Quinn from Dallas. Joe Witt was the linebackers coach in Dallas.
Okay, well, either way, defense can probably improve a little bit. Focus that on during the off season as well as your passing game, and you should be formidable.
Okay. Discussion.
Overall, I think just a surprise of a season. This is kind of an example why you can never just assume or count someone out. You always have to every single Sunday you have to take your opponent seriously because you don't know what they're going to be able to do that day. You don't know what to expect. And this is a really good example of that. They ended up beating what everyone expected to see in the Super Bowl, the Lions. They beat them pretty handily in the playoffs. So. Great year, and I think there's a lot to look forward to, especially with Deebo Samuel coming in. What do you guys say?
Yeah, I think I said it during our playoff recap that it's they didn't expect. Very few people expected the Commanders to be here, and so no matter what happened after that point, they had a successful season. Their metrics were not the same as everyone else. No one expected them to win the Super Bowl, and so when they get to the NFC Championship game, they overachieved by far. Now, according to Cody, Dan Quinn has 5 years to win a Super Bowl now, so
he's almost there. Might as well.
So, yeah, but that's. No, it's fun to be a Commanders fan at this point.
Yeah, I've never particularly cared for Washington all that much, but I'm excited to see how Jaden Daniels perform. He was fun to watch. So we'll see kind of next season if they can build on that success, and hopefully they weren't broke down by the late failures of this year. I hope that they build on what they had because they were a fun team to watch. They were an exciting team to watch.
Yeah, I look at it how you can unlock a team with the right leadership. The Commanders really struggled with leadership for a long time, and then they had totally cleaned house, just a couple years ago and brought in some new people and so comparing this dichotomy between the Commanders and the Giants, what we've talked about, what the Commanders have achieved with, they had some good tools, some good resources, but, no better than any other team for sure, but were able to have a very successful season. And then I've got to really eat crow about Jaden Daniels. He was absolutely fantastic. One of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen from a quarterback.
Yeah. Okay, one last thing to share here. This is how we predicted at the beginning of the season. Dustin, Yancey, and I, so 3 out of the 4 of us here, all predicted correctly that the Eagles would win this division. Cody was left out with the Cowboys there. Let's see. Cody and I correctly predicted that the Giants would be in last. And Yancey's the only one that got the Cowboys in third. And Pam, who's not here on this podcast, but Cody's wife, was the only one to predict the Commanders correctly in second. So none of us got this order correct, but all of us had at least one team in the right position.
I don't know what I saw in the Giants. Today's Yancey does not agree with yesterday's Yancey.
So, yeah. Any last comments about the NFC East? I'm gonna stop share. Next week we don't have any more college football to cover. We will. Whoops. We will talk a little bit more basketball, I'm sure, and we'll cover the AFC West next week. So the other Super Bowl team that played in that big game, as well as just some fun teams to cover next week. They were there.
They use that term lightly.
They wore their uniforms.
Participated in one way or another.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Later, boys.